So then, here are my top 5 Halloween scare events in the UK. So then, before I get into this list, a quick disclaimer. Firstly, I do have to point out that there are a few attractions in this list which I haven't been to as of yet, although I am going to this October. But I've judged this list on trusted data sources and places that I can trust the reviews from, because they mainly correlate with what I've said about other attractions that I have been to, and from every person I've spoken to, they've consolidated what these data sources have said. As well as that, I also want to stress across here that this is my top 5 scare events. There most definitely will be differences in what you think of UK scare events. I'd love to know what scare events that you would recommend going to in the comments, because this list, I've really struggled to narrow it down, and because obviously it's such a personal thing which scare events we all enjoy, there most definitely will be things that I put in this list that a lot of people won't agree with. I do it an awful lot. Please do bear that in mind. It's my personal top 5 list. There is a very high chance that you'll disagree. So then, in at number 5, we have Scarefest at Alton Towers. Now this is one which, although I made a video a few weeks back criticising that it's the same lineup, I do also have to put out there that although it's a continuous lineup for people that have been in previous years, if you've never been to the event, it's a very solid lineup, and it's not an awful selection of mazes. There's a decent few. I think we've got 4 this year, including the Invitation. Love it or hate it, it's an attraction to go to the event for, and it isn't a bad lineup. It's very good for families because you've got obviously Trick or Treat Town, and you've also got a real big variety in what sort of scares you want to go for if you're with a family, or if you want to just go for all the scares of the event. As well as that, you've obviously got live entertainment and roaming actors, and you also are in Alton Towers, so we have to bear that in mind. Very solid scare event. If you've been in previous years, I can very much understand that you most definitely won't want to go again this year, with it being a very cookie cutter lineup. Something I do have to make clear, if you are planning on going to Scarefest, the mazes aren't included in your entry ticket. That is one thing which I'm not going to rant like I've done in the previous videos, but if you are going and you don't know this, if you want to do the mazes, you have to buy that as an add-on or separately after you've booked it. So that might be something which deters you from this event, because it's not a thing of you pay an entry fee and get into everything. You will have to pay extra to go in those scare attractions and get the full experience, although you can still go to this event and enjoy the live shows and scare zones which are included in your entry ticket, so do bear that in mind. In at number 4, we have Twin Lakes Family Theme Park just outside of Melton Mowbray, which every October gets transformed into what we know as Xtreme Scream Park. Now this is one which I haven't been to as of yet, although plans are in place to visit this one this October, because every online forum and everything I've read through has non-stop praised this event and said not only is it very good value for what you get in your ticket, in that it's one of actually the cheaper scare events to go to, it competes with very high up scare events which aren't the cheapest to go to. So this is one which I'd definitely look out for if you've not got ridiculous amounts of money to spend to go to these events, because this is one which you get in and you get in the mazes. It's not a thing of you have to pay to get in, then pay to get in the mazes. Everything's included in your entry ticket. It's not anywhere near as expensive as other scare events in the UK. That was a tongue twister, but it really does offer a very similar experience, and I've heard great things, so that one is definitely worth a visit. In at number 3, we have another theme park scare event hosted at Thorpe Park, and it is of course Fright Nights. Now this is an event which I very much do hold a sweet spot for. It was my first ever scare event, with trailers being my first ever scare maze, so obviously going to have a bit of a sweet spot for this attraction, which is probably why it got the number 3 spot. Very similar to Alton Towers in that you have to pay to get in and then pay to get into mazes. That is something to consider again, although Thorpe Park does give you an awful lot in your entry ticket. You've got a very decent selection of scare zones. You've got the Crows of Morecambe Meadow this year, you've got Lucifer's Lair, and you've got Preacher's Campus, I think is replaced in the Lycanthorpe show, which is obviously a dance show which you get. Obviously Alton Towers does have the Ancestors, so very similar there. Very great thing to have in your ticket price if you do want to fork out the extra bit of money for the mazes, which if you've got the money to, I would recommend, because Thorpe Park I think really does excel in that they really go for it with their mazes in terms of theming them in, and the mazes are very, very good and enjoyable if you're willing to fork out the extra money, which is very much up to personal preference. This year you obviously have survival games. I can vouch for being very, very good and really does scare the hell out of me, so hopefully it does for other people. If not, I'm just a massive wimp when it comes to scare mazes, probably the second one. You've also got the return of trailers, very great scare maze, first ever scare maze I ever did. I do have to say this is also one which isn't too ridiculous in terms of scares. It's a lot more tame and goes more into the storyline. This is where it's different this year, and it's ridiculously scary, and I've lied, but I found trailers to be a very enjoyable maze. What we've also got this year is Stitches, which is their new maze. Don't know, haven't done it, don't really want to read into the teasers, so I won't be able to comment on that one, because I want to go into that maze without knowing what's coming, and really because I find that mazes are a lot more enjoyable when you don't know what's coming. But Fright Nights is definitely worth a visit if you've got the money. It does excel in terms of it really does put a lot on, but it's also not the cheapest, so do bear that in mind. In at number 2, we have one which I'm very nervous to do this year, but also excited at the same time, and that is Horror at Hinchinbrooke House. Now this is a scare event which I have heard heard nothing but incredible things about. I've heard that it's not only a very good attraction, I've heard that it is very high up with the scares and filled to the brim with actors. Now this does differ from other scare events, as Hinchinbrooke is less a selection of separate mazes, like 5 or 6 separate mazes that last 15-20 minutes at most. Hinchinbrooke is one long continuous maze which lasts over an hour. I think it's like an hour and a half, with sections being of different themes and different IPs sometimes at the event, and it's apparently really great, but it is non-stop for the hour and a half you're in there, so that is something to consider. Although I've heard amazing things about this event and I'm very excited to go, I've heard that it's quite intense on the scare side and it's quite relentless from start to finish. That might not be true, I'm not sure. I'll make sure to make a video after I've been this year, because I am very nervous to see what this attraction delivers, because, well, it sounds absolutely terrifying, but we'll see. And it is one which is definitely worth the visit if you do want that intense scare attraction, which is a bit unique because this is obviously within the Hinchinbrooke House grounds, so it's a very unique place to go to a scare event, really, isn't it? So then, just before we get to the number 1 spot, some honourable mentions which I haven't included in this list. We have Journey to Hell at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Heard great things about this event. Again, it's one which I haven't been to. Really definitely worth the visit, although apparently it was not the greatest last year. Hopefully they'll step it back up this year and make it a great event, because I've heard in previous years to last year it was a great event, so worth the visit if you're near and around Blackpool and want a scare event around there. We have Chessington Wildlife Adventures hosts Halloween, which I've heard is a great family scare event. You've obviously got some really good scare attractions there for families, and I've heard nothing but great things about that as well. And also Dr. Fright's Halloween Nights, which I've heard great things about as well. So then, in at number 1, we have Tulleys Shocktober Fest. Now this is one which I had to put at the number 1 spot because I have seen in countless reviews and ranking videos Tulleys always makes it to the number 1 spot, and it is again sadly one which I haven't done. I will be doing this October, however, and it seems incredible. Now this is one which I do have to say is on the pricier side. If you are going to Tulleys, I would recommend going on a weekday because tickets are a little bit cheaper. They're not ridiculously cheaper, but it does save you that little bit of money. Also, something to bear in mind with Tulleys is, although the entry ticket may seem a little bit more money, your entry ticket gets you into the mazes. It's not like Thorpe or Towers where you have to spend additional to get into those mazes. That entry ticket will get you in all the mazes, so that is something to bear in mind. And I've heard great things. This is an event which I have been wanting to go to for years, so I'm very excited to try and fit it in this October because it looks absolutely incredible and is one which is definitely worth the visit if you've got the budget to go to it. So then, thank you for watching. Those were just my top 5 UK Halloween scare events. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'll try and compress that down for the thumbnail if I can. Those were just the ones that I could think of off the top of my head, and really struggled to narrow the ones that I could think of into a list because there is just so many great ones in the UK. As I said earlier, if you do know any great scare events in the UK, please do put it in the comments because I'd love to see it, as I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this video would. It would be great to know of some more because we've got such a great selection, and I know for a fact I've definitely missed out an awful lot. So please do put some in the comments. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe. It really does help this channel out and does make the world of difference. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.